Rest, and He will come out of the shadow that your ambition has created. You're made to be content when you know God is with you. You weren't created to be better than other people, but to love them. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me is about being content wherever you are.
Thanks for joining us on Life Journeys, a podcast about thriving through the worst pain that life brings. With global initiatives threatening big changes to our way of life, we're going to need to activate Jesus' words about mountain-moving faith. Words That Work is the ongoing series on life journeys that is rooted in releasing revelational words of faith that will work every time and with everyone. It's about moving the mountains that keep us from the presence and goodness of God. It's about defining our life purpose and identity through encountering Him until we have the power to move the obstacles that are destroying our liberty and hope.
As I was sharing a podcast a while ago, God seemed to speak to me about what I was sharing. He said, apply it to yourself. That was His hint. I was talking about setting spiritual goals too high for where we're at. It was about making vows to God and oneself to be better, do better, and walk closer. His counsel to me, as well as my listeners, was simply this. Let me set the goals for your life this week. Don't keep trying to stay ahead of where I am with you. Let me carry you, discipline you, and lead you. You can't walk where I want you to walk without experiencing the refining times I have planned for you. Don't be afraid of them. I am your ever-caring Father. Let me accomplish what's best for you, and don't be afraid of the hard times. There's another day coming quickly. Be content with what you have, for I am with you. Your contentment won't come from getting all that you want. You're built in a way that you'll be content when you know I am with you. Be content with what you are, a human being. You're not perfect. You'll fail, get broken, hurt, angry, frustrated, and afraid. Why? Because you're a human. Stop trying to change what you are. It's okay to be human. I'll change what needs changing. The message is be content with where you are. You're not like other people because you weren't made that way. You'll never be a gold medalist, a Golden Globe award-winning actor, or even the best in the state at whatever your job is. Why? You weren't created to be better than other people, but to love them. Be content with being chosen by God, with being one of His royal children. Be content with where you're going, with a sure hope of heaven. As I prayed for direction about not getting ahead of God's plan, the word content came into view. Hebrews 13:5 says, be content with what you have. I will never leave you or forsake you. It's like a reminder of what He told Abraham as he was just beginning to be shaped for his walk of faith that would be complete 25 years later with a son, Isaac. I am your shield and exceedingly great reward. Having the presence of the Lord, the assurance of His promises, and the power of His grace is more than enough. To slow down, stop trying to be a great one, and live up to God's potential in you is of great reward. Paul learned to be content in whatever state he was in. No matter who's in charge in the government, what kind of dwelling we live in, whether it be a prison or a palace, he learned to be at peace with the lowly, yet highly exalted Lord of glory. That's the only way to be able to say I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Being content in whatever state we are in is what this verse means. You strive too much, he said. You burn the wick instead of the oil in your lamp, and it smokes, smells, and pollutes, and is very dim. Burn the oil of quietness and contentment. I will never leave you or forsake you. Not too long ago, he spoke to me. You're trying too hard. I thought I had learned a long time ago not to live with selfish ambitions and not to live with a deep striving to be the best you can be. Instead, I was learning to be the best that God is making of me. Everything else leads to sickness and weakness and burnout, and sadly, it's taking a lifetime to apply this in my own life. Do you realize we were created to live in the presence of God? We were created to be chosen by Him and have His provision and peace without striving. The Bible says He leads me beside still waters, and He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Let's learn to live that before they read it at the cemetery. Let's hear Jesus tell Martha, who was so busy with preparations for Jesus' visit to her house, "You're troubled about many things." He would teach her, "Just sit here with me and find rest." I wonder how much religious energy by pastors and church leaders has got the church tied up in knots with expectations that God is not laying on any of us. Stop wanting. The Lord is your shepherd. Be content with what you have. I'm talking about being content as a spiritual state of amazing rest because God is there in the room with you. Too often you and I are so busy between our ears that we can't see or hear Him with the eyes of faith that simply rests. It's here that He will lead you. When you stop trying so hard to prove yourself, to others, and to God, and just learn the power of contentment in His presence. And He can bring you to places in the heart that will just draw men to you. You don't have to strive. Rest, and He will come out of the shadow that your ambition has created. You're probably in a storm and you don't even know it because you've been there so long. You're straining at the oars in a boat that seems like it's going way too slow. The Bible says about the disciples in a storm that God forced them into going into the storm so that they could learn this, that as soon as they took Jesus into the boat, they got to where they were going. You don't have to have the nicest yard, the corners of the rug all in place, or to answer the phone and let the world run your life. You'll never know contentment. Never know what it's like to be created to simply rest with Jesus in the room. Why are you so anxious? He spoke to me, "I know all about everything that you need." Why don't you seek the one thing you don't have sorted out? My presence. It's the one thing you need. I'm the one thing you need. I am the Prince of Peace, and no other can do for you what all of your labor has tried to do for the last decades of your life. Stop. I'm right here. I won't leave you. I am your exceeding and great reward. You worry about who you are. I created you in such a way that my image defines who you are when you rest in me. You worry about all the things you need, and you let the news terrify you. If I can take care of a bird who doesn't worry near as much as you do, and who isn't near as smart as you are, why won't you let me take care of you, who are of more value than the birds? You see, we need to learn to hear Him say to us, "Come to me, you who are laboring and so weighed down with striving, and I will give you rest." I'll just give it to you. Learn about me, for I am meek and lowly in heart. You and I need to see Jesus with His arm around our shoulder and with a peaceful smile that cuts right through our souls with the confidence of the Creator Himself. Let the world win the lottery, but let Jesus win your heart and give you a greater gain that can't be robbed. Paul says, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything as of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that you, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. It doesn't say that His grace will supply you with an abundance of all things. It says that His abundant grace towards you will cause you to be satisfied, so you may have an abundance of good work, not ambitious work. You won't be preoccupied with your career, but with your life purpose. As I was journaling one day, I wrote, I have failed others and God many times. I have failed my churches and my own vows to myself to be a better man. Yet, God is not like me. Too often I have committed the greatest failure of thinking that He is like me, faithful one day and against me the next. But I can no longer withstand the deception that God is like a man. I can no longer live with the expectation that He is who I am in heart. If I do, I will continue to judge God like I judge myself. How can I for one more hour desecrate the honor of God's love, the power of the atonement, and the integrity of His holy and faithful promises? God is not a man that He should lie. How can I deny His faithfulness, or that He is able to keep what He has promised to me? He said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Never. I simply have to stop thinking that God will be with me on my good days, but He will turn away from me on my bad ones. I need to root out the idea that God's grace is no greater than mine.
You can unlock the presence of God in your life. There are revelation principles that remove the mountains, keeping us from joy, hope, peace, and purpose when our world gets turned upside down. Look for these words that work with Pastor Hardika as he shares what has helped him when life got hard. And don't forget to check out his book, The Fortress and the Firebrand, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for listening to Life Journeys. Find new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. And if you're new to this series, it begins with the September 16th episode.
Rest, and He will come out of the shadow that your ambition has created. You're made to be content when you know God is with you. You weren't created to be better than other people, but to love them. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me is about being content wherever you are.